Okay, what does it mean to bear witness? The actual definition is to show that something exists or is true. And if we know that the Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit, that we are the children of God, that's a quote from Romans. If we know that we are actually the witness of spirit, like if God is saying, I want to show that I exist, here's man. You know that quote from Bicknell Young that I like to quote all the time. If you're looking for God, you see man, right? So if spirit, the Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit. So we are the witnesses. We are the evidence that God exists. So if you're in a court case and the evidence is tainted, or there's something called the custody of evidence, right? And if the custody of evidence is not clear, you don't trust it. So what is the custody of the evidence that is us? Are we allowing ourselves to get pulled into representing something that's not true of us? Look at the Adam and Eve story. You know, where Eve is tempted, well, the tree looks good, it's good for food, and it's pleasant to the eyes, and it is there to make you wise. How many times does mortal mind tempt us into believing that looking at the material evidence is going to make us smarter about what's going on with us? How many times do we go in that direction and then realize, wait a second, the only truth is going to be gained from spiritual sense? Mrs. Eddy says, spiritual sense can bear witness only to truth. So if spiritual sense is bearing witness only to truth, and we are bearing witness to God, of God, that we are the evidence that God is, the spiritual sense of who we are is the only thing that's bearing the truth. It's the only thing that is the true evidence. So when we look to the tree of knowledge, because it's going to make us wise, it's going to show us something more true than what spiritual sense is telling us, we know how that story ends. It's like, spoiler alert, it doesn't end well. Groveling the earth, feeling shame. I mean, if you ever feel shame, look to the Adam and Eve story. That's the source. So feeling shame, feeling like you need to be groveling the earth, feeling like, oh, shoot, I got to go find out more from matter. I need to look to matter to find evidence if everything's going better. I need to look to matter to see if there's something going wrong. I need to look to matter to find the solution. You know that the level of thought that sees the problem is not the same level of thought that you're going to find the solution from. Well, when we're looking to matter for the problem and the solution, what does that get you? It gets you the same level of thought that the problem sits on. You're not going to find a solution there. The only place we're going to find true solutions is in truth. Well, what gives us truth? Spiritual sense is the only thing that is going to bear witness to the truth. Spiritual sense can bear witness only to truth, is the exact quote. So where do we get truth? Where do we get grace and truth? The Bible tells us grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. Well, if you don't like the by Jesus Christ part because it sounds too religious, what do you say? Grace and truth came by truth consciousness, the Christ. What does the Christ communicate with? Does the Christ communicate with your material senses when you're immersed in matter? You know, there's that story where Jesus goes and sits around the publicans and sinners, and he's preaching to the publicans and sinners. And what happens? They say, why are you sitting with publicans and sinners? Don't you need to sit with other people? And he said, no, I'm sitting with publicans and sinners because they're the ones who, you know, they're the ones who need me. They're the ones who need the Christ, right? So what is it in our thought? Where are the publicans and sinners in our thought? What are the publicans and sinners that the Christ is presenting itself to uplift and bring us into the understanding, the reality of our spiritual senses? So identify the false witnesses in your thought. Identify what those false witnesses are bearing witness to. What are they saying is the evidence of their belief? If they're steeped in belief, publicans and sinners, steeped in belief, steeped in the belief of sin, what are they bearing witness to? What they've learned from the material senses, what they've learned from feeling separate from source, what they know of themselves based on false evidence, based on false testimony. Well, if a witness has been tainted somehow, we don't believe them. We don't believe the evidence from a witness that isn't true, from a witness that somehow has been tainted or bought off or has been planted to bring in evidence against someone. We don't believe them. So why do we believe the false witnesses in our own thinking? Why do we take it on as who we are and start believing it and start pointing to it as evidence against the truth? I don't know about you, but it happens all the time. So I need to look at my thought and say, where are those like publicans and sinners in my thinking that are buying into the false evidence? And know that that's who the Christ is sitting with. That's where the Christ goes to uplift, negate, correct, change, to transform thought to the pure and true idea of who I am. Spiritual sense can bear witness only to the truth. So grace and truth from the Christ. Jesus says, they that are whole have no need of the physician, but they that are sick. Well, so those sick thoughts, those publicans and sinner thoughts, it's sort of more fun to think of those thoughts as other people, not people, but other identities that are false identities, that are false witnesses. Like, ew, those aren't me. Like, it's good to think of them as something other than our own identity. So the place in us that is, I love the Bible quote, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. That sense of being water, that we're born of water, I think of it as being water. Well, water takes the form of whatever container it's in. It also is that form of quote unquote matter that can take all forms. It can be liquid, it can be solid, it can be gas, which is kind of cool. It's like the morph master of matter. So it doesn't really feel as much material. And it is water. So be water. Be fluid in your life. Allow the Christ to shift you and mold you and move you into that place where you no longer identify with the publicans and the sinners, the false witnesses, the ones who are bearing witness to an idea separate from God, sin, separate from God, somehow missing the mark, not recognizing who you are as a child of God. The Christ is molding and shifting and changing, washing away. It's another reason I love water. It purifies and clarifies, and it washes away all the erroneous ideas. So none of that stays on you. The dirt gets washed off. The false witnesses just get dissolved. So what's left? What's left? You know what I'm going to say. You know what I'm going to say because you know the truth. What's left when all the false ideas, when all the false witnesses go away? If you're in a court case and they take every false witness away, what's left is the truth, the reality, what actually happened, who you actually are. You are bearing witness to spirit. Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit. Well, our spirit is true because it is a reflection of the divine. So if you take any false witnesses away, who's bearing false witness, you're left with the truth. Jesus threw upon mortals the truer reflection of God and lifted their lives higher than their poor thought models would allow. The poor thought models of the publican and sinner type thinking. So the poor thought models that are going on, recognize it's not your thinking. Recognize that the way out of that is to hold perfect models in thought. We know that whatever is indicating the fall of man, those false witnesses, or the opposite of God, or God's absence, is the Adam dream. That's a quote from Science and Health. So we always want to claim what is true. I mean, this is, I'm not saying anything new to anybody here. This is basic stuff, but there's a 3-step thing you can do. Well, number one, really be open to and available to the Christ. Number two, claim the truth. What is the truth? What is the Christ telling you is true? Claim it, commit to it, and then live into it. Claim it. Mark the perfect man and behold the upright. For the end of that man is peace. Mark the perfect man. Hold that perfect model in thought. Claim it. Commit to that as who you are. Commit to that way of being. Commit to that understanding of you as the only reality you're going to hold in your thought. And then live into that. Be the expression of that. Don't settle for less. Don't walk around arguing with the false witness. It's like, go back to the court case. You got a false witness, you know they're false. You're not going to argue with them. You've proven that they're a false witness. There's no more discussion. They've been outed as lying, committing perjury. No one's going to listen to them. So you've already proven, it's already been proven, and you've demonstrated in your life that matter does not bear witness to the truth. Only spiritual sense can bear witness to truth. So don't keep listening to material sense. Let the Christ reveal in your consciousness that it is a lie. And once that has been revealed, don't listen. Mark the perfect man. Behold the upright. For the end of that man is peace and health and wholeness and security and. Mrs. Eddy says it beautifully. I've quoted it already, but we must form perfect models in thought and look at them continually, or we will never carve them out in grand and noble lives. So it sounds like, oh, that's just too easy. Can't be that easy. It is that easy. Don't let yourself down. Don't get into that headspace where mortal mind is running around pulling the levers of your thought. Be water. Let the Christ mold your thought into the reality of who you are, into recognizing the lies when they come up and letting go, letting them get washed away by the Christ consciousness. Don't hold on to them in resistance of the truth. Don't hold on to the lie. Claim the truth, commit to it, and live into it. Okay, let's bring it in. Okay, so so the good news is, let's go back to the original where we started. The spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit. The good news is God's doing all the work. There's not a lot, like God spirit itself is bearing witness with our spirit. Like we are the witness. We are bearing witness to the reality, the identity, the fact of God. God's showing that he exists with us. There's not a lot of effort in that on our part. We get to just be the evidence of God. That's cool. Don't start believing in the tree of good and evil. Don't pick the fruit. Like, don't pick the fruit. It's not going to make you wise. It's not going to make it better. You're not going to find evidence there of any reality. It's not good. So don't pick the fruit. And if you did pick the fruit, drop it. Don't eat it. Like, come on. It's a rotten apple. Like if you picked it and it's rotten, you're not going to eat it. So just see it as a rotten apple. It's like it has that illusion of looking all good. It's not. It's rotten to the core. Don't eat the rotten apple. All right. I know it's kind of weird on the iPad because I can never figure out where to look, and I'm probably looking off to the side. But all right, love you guys. See you tomorrow. Don't go eat rotten apples. So long.